Thanks for staying with us. Now, the government last night removed 5 destinations from its travel green list. Malta, Cyprus, Gibraltar, San Marino and Monaco have now been dropped from the list that was published last month.
Travel expert and author of Air and Travel magazine, Eoghan Corry, joins us now to discuss the changes along with answering your travel questions. Good morning to you, Eoghan. The reason, why were those 5 countries removed from this list?
A very simple metric, Ciara. Any country with a better rate than Ireland or the same will stay on the green list or be put on the green list. Any country that has a worse rate will not feature on the green list. Quite controversial, quite different from what the rest of Europe is doing, which is accepting a metric which gets most of their European countries in. We've decided to go it our own way on this, and we've ended up with a pretty nonsensical green list. There won't be much gnashing of teeth and crying over Gibraltar and Monaco and San Marino being removed from the list. 2 of those countries don't even have airports. And we still have one very significant country left on the list. 3% of our international trading is done with Italy. Look, good to see them. Greece, significant for outbound destinations. Ryanair have added flights. TUI have started a program for there. We've got the 3 Baltic states, Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, Finland and Norway, all still on the green list. But the big question is, when are we going to take another look at this with a very unforgiving metrics and say, the outbreaks and all over Europe are not about large countries, they're about regions. The Canary Islands would be one of the safest places in the world. It's a region of Spain, it's not counted. Greenland is a region of Denmark, and it is no real explanation for that. The Canary Islands are further away from Madrid than Ireland is.
I know, sorry. Oh, now we're going to see that happening. I know they're lobbying to try and get places like the Canary Islands and the islands off Greece because they're so low to be put on that list. Can we see that happening, or are they just taking like Spain as a whole and Greece as a whole?
That's been what's happened so far. You can see the debate going on within the cabinet. Some people saying we need to consider something other than the metric. The medical people, NFIT, NEFIT, the artist formerly known as NFIT, they have decided that they're getting it down to 0, which is their right and which is what, frankly, they've been asked to do. Getting the caseload down to 0 would be threatened by any opening of international travel. They're opposed to it. They actually want to make the 14-day self-isolation legally enforceable. It's not at the moment. But the other side of the debate, the checks and balances saying, hey, guys, the rest of Europe is opening their borders. If there is a plan to do this in a managed way, vetted and passed by the European Centre of Disease Control and the European Air Safety Authority. Aviation, these guys do safety. That's what they're good at. The plans are all there. We've just decided we didn't embrace them. We didn't decide to go with them. We actually didn't decide not to go with them either. We came up with this compromise, which is a green list, which looks like it was drawn up for Craggy Island.
But the advice remains the same, Eoghan. It doesn't matter who comes on or off this green list. This isn't a holiday list, is it?
The advice is very strongly against holiday travel and leisure travel. The real problem here is that it affects all travel. Travel to these countries is not just sort of a bucket and spade operation. And the odd thing is that people are ignoring the green list because it took so long to come. And Ryanair put 40% of their fleet back in the sky. It's now gone up to 60%. They announced load factors yesterday of 72%, with nearly 20,000 through the airport on the busiest day last week. That brings us back to not quite the 2000s, but it brings us back to the levels of airport usage we saw in 1991. So there's a parallel universe where people are going on holiday anyway. And one of the arguments is, would it not be better for the government and the health authorities to react to what's happening on the ground and extend their contact tracing to people who are travelling, and also to monitor to put specific regions in the no-fly list. rather than entire countries, which means that the advice is generally being ignored. That's what's happening across Europe. We've seen a pattern where the virus, when you have it very, very tightly controlled, it stays down. When the controls are released, it begins to emerge again. But that's a regional pattern, not a pattern that goes by the broad definitions of countries. NFIT advice is perfect. It's exactly what they're supposed to do. The checks and balances on the other side are what we need to put in place, because there are 200,000 inbound tourism jobs at stake. Other countries are worse conditioned than us. They've said we're opening by a certain date. It doesn't really matter if you open by then. You can postpone it as much as you want. But by running around with our hands in the air saying nobody allowed to come in, nobody allowed to go out, it actually sends this message out that you don't come to Ireland. German tour operators have moved all their bookings of holidays from Ireland for 2020 and some for 2021 to other countries.
Eoghan, we have some questions for you. Debbie's on the line. Debbie, give us your question there for Eoghan.
Good morning, Eoghan. I've always had an annual travel insurance policy. Now, I booked a couple of trips for this year prior to COVID, when my last policy was in operation. And in April of this year, I didn't renew the policy because obviously wasn't going to be travelling anywhere, didn't want to be wasting money. Now, my question is, my policy from last year, when I booked these trips, does that cover me for the trips that I can't take now?
The policy relates to travel, not to when you book the trip. A policy taken out since March will probably not cover COVID, but I noticed that was over the last 3 or 4 weeks, more companies have taken on the issue of COVID for medical treatment, and not so much for the cancellation policy. But the key to your question is, if you take out travel insurance, it relates to the period you're travelling, not to when you book the trip.
So unfortunately, Debbie's not covered.
Not covered. Sorry, she's not covered if she did not renew in April. Sorry about that. Yeah.
Wow.
Bad news for you. Sorry, Debbie. We have another phoner on the line. Michelle, what is your situation?
Hiya, how's it going? I booked a flight to Rias. Yes. And the flight home is via London. Now, the two direct flight out and the flight back to London were cancelled. But the one from London to Dublin wasn't. So I'm just wondering now...
Are you entitled to a refund for that flight? So your flight that would have brought you from Rias to London has been cancelled. So you've been refunded. The London to Dublin one. What's the answer there, Eoghan?
Very simple. If it's the same transaction, your flight, you're covered. You will get a transfer or a new date or a voucher or your money back. If you have booked a separate flight and the separate PNR, that little locator, that 6-digit reference number isn't the same for your London to Dublin as it is from Rias to London, now you're in trouble, because it's treated as a single one-way flight. If the flight goes ahead, which a lot of them are, and you're not on it, you're just treated as a no-show. So it's all dependent on it being one transaction.
Oh, it's a difficult time for people. Really thank you, as always, Eoghan, for your advice this morning, and thank you to both of our phoners. Not good news.
Not good news
for either of those people. There's a real risk, isn't there, when it comes to booking flights at the moment and booking holidays?
I would have thought when you booked you're obviously covered for when you go, not from when you've booked it.
Yeah, there you go. We're learning
Even
something
though you have
new
your
every
insurance.
day.